So with free agency behind us, we've seen the combine, we've seen pro days, and we see more and more realistic mock drafts, as
Yeah.
realistic as they can be. We are giving you realistic landing spots for all of your favorite 2023 Dynasty rookies, projecting where they're going to go, what's the draft capital,
Come on.
and what that could mean for Dynasty value. Do us a
Mm-hmm.
favor, drop a like to show some support. Subscribe if you like Dynasty content.
That's right, baby.
And I want you to comment below right now. I'm about to ask Badake, where's Bijan Robinson going? I want you to comment right now. Say, this is where I think they're going. Maybe you and Badake are on the same page, and give us rationale in the comments below. But hey, if you want access to our rankings, which will be completely updated after each day of the NFL draft,
That's right.
articles, bonus content, if you want to be set up for rookie draft season, go ahead and sign up to Flock Fantasy. Go to flockfantasy.com/land. Sign up with our code LAND, LAND, and you'll get 30% off your membership. I have no doubts that you will love the site.
Yeah.
Okay, so Badake, we're gonna go back and forth. We're not gonna cover the same players.
No.
So I'm gonna ask you right now to start off. Where is Bijan Robinson landing? Where do you think?
I've said this multiple times, and I'll say it again. I don't understand how a blue chip player like Bijan Robinson, the best running back since Saquon Barkley, comes to this NFL draft and goes outside the top 10. So, before I get into my landing spot, I'll tell you two realistic spots: the Chargers in the 21st pick, and the Eagles also with the 10th pick. But the team I have Bijan going to, my most likely landing spot, is the Chicago Bears in pick 9, round 1. And
Okay.
the last time we did this video, I said the Carolina Panthers in pick 9, round 1.
Yep.
Clearly that's changed. They traded up. Now the Bears traded back, got some capital. I think this is a perfect opportunity for the Chicago Bears to sign or to draft Bijan Robinson, getting their blue chip running back, a guy that can be a pass catching threat and help Justin Fields in the backfield. Also, minimize a little bit of Justin Fields' workload on the ground because he needs to stay healthy, right? He needs to be this guy that can stay in the pocket, that can throw the ball and do that. And we saw that by them, drafting or trading for or picking up in free agency some offensive lineman guys, some defensive guys. So there's still no doubt in my mind that Bijan Robinson will be the RB1 if he goes to the Chicago Bears. I can't see him going to any team and not be the RB1 still in our rankings. So Bijan Robinson to the Chicago Bears, pick 9, round 1.
Pick 9, round 1 to the Chicago Bears.
The Bears.
I like it, and every time I see it in a real NFL mock draft, I'm like, hey, that's spicy, but I like that. I think that could be really. That could be hot. I like how that core would fit together, and that offense instantly becomes even better than it already was. So I think it makes a lot of sense for sure. All right, I'm going to tell you about Jaxon Smith-Njigba. Where is Jaxon Smith-Njigba going to land? I felt like at a moment there for about 2 or 3 months, I was like, why is no one giving Jaxon Smith respect in NFL mock drafts? Why is he being drafted so far down the board? Some people are saying he's not even a first round pick. Combine comes, he kills it, kills his pro day, and now I think it's consensus across the board that he is a wide receiver 1. He's been my wide receiver 1 throughout the entire process. I think as much as Bijan's a chance at 9, so is JSN. There's a realistic chance that JSN goes to Chicago. That's not my spot. I also think that the Packers could make a lot of sense. Round 1, pick 15. The Seahawks never went offensive lineman in the first round until Russell Wilson left, right? Then they got Charles Cross last year. The Packers have not gone wide receiver in the first round. Well, could you imagine JSN and Christian Watson together? That is a ridiculous combo as Jordan Love starts his career. And by the way, he's had top 30 visits so far with the Saints, Panthers, and Bears. So something to keep in mind. But my most likely landing spot, the landing spot that I think makes the most sense, would be the Houston Texans, round 1, pick 12. Ideally, the Texans get CJ Stroud. I don't know where you guys stand. Let me know in the comments. But I personally feel like it's Bryce Young at 1. I still feel that way. I don't think that you just move up because you have all these players in mind. I think you have done your due diligence before making this pick and giving away so much draft capital. And I think it's for the guy that everyone says he's just different than the rest. To me, I think Bryce Young does go 1, but I could be wrong. Could be CJ. But ideally, CJ goes at 2 to the Texans, and you pair up these Ohio State teammates again together here in the pros. regardless, if it's Bryce Young at 2, this team needs a true wide receiver 1 now that they have traded Brandon Cooks away to the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, everything about this team needs to be building around their franchise quarterback. Everything, right? When Justin Herbert entered the league, he had Keenan Allen, he had Mike Williams. When Joe Burrow entered the league, he had T. Higgins, and then he got Jamar Chase. When, the Bills, they got Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs. The Eagles, they got Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, and Devonta Smith. The Dolphins, they got Tua, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle. If it's CJ or if it's Bryce, you need to give him a legit receiving threat. The offensive line is not terrible. This isn't some bottom 5 offensive line in the NFL. It's a decent offensive line, especially that Laramie Tunsil has just gotten re-signed. So you already have your future at that position, left tackle that is. But if it's CJ or if it's Bryce, great. You got Dameon Pierce. Maybe they bring in a complimentary running back. JSN, Dalton Schultz, John Mechie, Nico Collins. You are improving those weapons around whoever your franchise quarterback is. You want to give him as much opportunity to succeed as a rookie as possible. And what would this mean for Dynasty Outlook? I mean, wouldn't change anything for me. He's been my wide receiver 1. He would stay my wide receiver 1. And in my mind, some of these spots that are not sexy is the perfect spots for wide receivers. The spots that your favorite rookie wide receiver steps in and they're instantly the guy there, right? I mean, it's a perfect situation. Uber talented wide receiver goes to a team that needs wide receiver. I mean, he's probably leading this team in targets in the first year. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Instant opportunities. And if you're worried about, let's say, if he was to go to the Texans, then you need to learn from last year when a lot of people faded Garrett Wilson. Wasn't my wide receiver 1. I know a lot of people had him as their wide receiver 1, but learn from last year when a lot of people faded Garrett Wilson because he went to the Jets. You just bet on those talents, and if they go to a team of need, you bet on them. So JSN to the Texans, linking up with one of these rookie quarterbacks.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, getting a quarterback and a wide receiver and solidifying that for your offense is a massive.
This would be a franchise-changing draft for them.
Oh, no doubt about it. And then we're talking about the Houston Texans as this powerhouse team in a year or two. Who knows? Okay, my next guy to stay in the wide receiver room, my wide receiver 1, as you guys know, I've been following, it is Quentin Johnston. And I've been trying not to be a homer pick. Obviously, I can easily say one of the most realistic landing spots is to go to the New York Giants. I think there is a world where the Giants don't take a wide receiver, which is really scary as a Giants fan. Okay, so that is one realistic landing spot. The second realistic landing spot is the Los Angeles Chargers. But I feel like they might go a different route with a Zay or Jordan Addison, in my personal opinion. So my most likely landing spots. And this will be so funny if it does happen. He's going to the Kansas City Chiefs. Everyone hates.
Okay.
Everyone hates. They don't hate Quentin. They just think there's this TCU thing. He catches the ball with his body, blah, 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 blah. And then he's going to go play with Patrick Mahomes, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And then he gets overdrafted like Sky Moore. Then people start to trade up to get Quentin Johnston. And then they say, well, he's playing with Patrick Mahomes, right? So it's hilarious. It's not hilarious, but I do believe this is a landing spot because, once again, if the Giants don't take a wide receiver, he can fall just to the Chiefs and play with Patrick Mahomes. So
that was my question. Is this a trade up, or you think he's falling to 31?
I think he could fall to 31. I think he could fall. I don't think the Chiefs would trade up. And I don't, once again, if Quentin is the only wide receiver on this board and the Giants are there, I think they would take Quentin. But at the same time, I also see them going defensively and saying, you know what, we just don't like him. So I personally think if he does fall to 31, it makes sense. He was a last draft pick in the NFL, or he was a last wide receiver taken in the first round, and he fell to a place that maybe we all didn't expect him to fall going to the Kansas City Chiefs. And now you're thinking, well, he has to work against Travis Kelce, Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney. First of all, if Kadarius Toney needs to stay on the field, in my personal perspective. Sky Moore, I believe it. I see him taking the next step. I would agree. And Andy Reid has said that, come out and said, we project him and we want him to take the next step. So you bring in Quentin, your big body wide receiver, with Kelce, who knows when the downfall is. When is that really going to happen? Is that going to happen next year or the year before? If it does happen next year and they get QJ, then we're all having a whole different tune, because who's going to be his new favorite target? It could be QJ, it could be Sky, but all I know is there's going to be a workload for Quentin Johnston. So I really like this landing spot. Also, the Dynasty outlook here, there's no doubt he's going to be overdrafted unless people, realize what they did last year. Do they believe in Quentin over Sky Moore? right? Do they like that talent better? I would say yes, no doubt about it. But I know the fantasy community doesn't like Quentin Johnston as much as I do. So I personally project him. If Travis Kelce is no longer on this team or retires within the next 2 to 3 years, he can definitely be a top 20 wide receiver there. But with Travis Kelce, I would say it'll be a little bit harder. It'll be a little bit harder with Travis there. So we got to wait and see.
Sure, top 20 is it should be easy if he's drafted
with Patrick Mahomes without
I would be shocked if he fell that far. That's why I'm like, wow. So no trade up.
Well, we know that the NFL doesn't love this wide receiver class. So maybe
I hear you. I hear you, but I think you've heard a lot of people who have talked down on you having Quentin Johnston as your wide receiver 1, but that's not everyone. Not everyone.
No, not everyone. I feel like a good majority of it, good 80% feels. I feel like. You know?
No, but I'm saying like not everyone dislikes this wide receiver. Yeah. Like I would be shocked if he fell that far, but you're right, it's possible. Staying in the wide receiver room, let's talk about Jordan Addison. A couple spots that could make sense, and I'll tell you my realistic spot. I think the Giants could make sense for you guys at pick 25.
Yeah.
I think the Patriots could make sense at pick 14. Yes, the Patriots don't typically, draft well in the first round when it comes to wide receivers, but that doesn't mean that you stop. Did the Eagles stop drafting first round wide receivers because they missed on Jalen Reagor? No, they went out and drafted Devonta Smith. Like you need one of the most valuable positions on offense. You need that in your offense. It's just simple. By the way, Addison has had top 30 visits with the Chargers, the Patriots, the Giants, the Ravens, and my most likely landing spot, he has also had a top 30 visit or plans to with the Minnesota Vikings.
Oh boy.
My most likely spot is the Vikings round 1 pick 23. This team needs to look at replacing Adam Thielen long term. And really, until this year, Adam Thielen was a crucial part of this offense. I think people quickly forget how important Adam Thielen was because of the brilliance of Justin Jefferson. And it makes sense because Justin Jefferson is so good. But I don't personally feel like KJ Osborne is the guy to fill that wide receiver 2 role. He's a much better wide receiver 3 than he is a 2. You kind of like when you add a player like Jordan Addison into this offense, everyone else, their roles look a little bit easier compared to their capacity is what I would say. But you look at this core for the next 5 years, you're building around Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, and Jordan Addison. We have already seen the end of this year, teams starting to figure out how to stop this offense because it was really just Justin Jefferson. And people are saying, all right, well, I'll put cover over the top. I'll double team him. Like Justin Jefferson's not going to beat us. And you started to see that, into the season, into the playoffs. Now you add a player like Jordan Addison who can create separation for days. That kind of solves that problem. Hey, we can no longer double team JJ because Addison is on the other side and his assignment cannot cover him anyway. So we can't do that anymore. I think this makes a ton of sense for the team, and they complement each other really well in that wide receiver room. And for Dynasty, I'm not going to say that this, skyrockets him up ranking. I think this just gives you the confidence to draft him wherever you were. For me, it's like right around Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, very similar range. I would like this landing spot. But you still have to deal with that, elephant in the room, which is Kirk Cousins. How long is Kirk Cousins the answer for this team? And when the quarterback change comes, will that be good for Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison? So to me, I think it's not a bad landing spot. It's not an incredible landing spot. You bet on the talent, like I always say. And I think it could make a lot of sense for the team. The defense did improve, and I think they're going to continually improve. So I like Addison here. If he's available at pick 23, I don't see how, like if Addison, Flowers, Johnston are available at pick 23, I think the Vikings would draft one of those wide receivers.
Yeah, without a doubt. I completely agree. It's going to be a dogfight in the middle of the draft of trying to get some of these wide receivers, and Jordan Addison is going to be on the top of that list for these teams. Okay, let's go to the quarterback room. My quarterback I'm covering today is Will Levis. I know the fantasy community doesn't like him. I have a little bit of love for Will. I think it's been a little bit disrespectful all year long.
Yeah.
So a realistic landing spot for Will Levis, without a doubt, the Colts in pick 4, round 1.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty obvious. They had a private workout with Will, brought the whole squad out to see what was happening if they really want to invest in him. But obviously, you had to pick between Anthony Richardson and Will Levis. That's a tough decision for some people, maybe for not. A second realistic landing spot, Tampa Bay at pick 19. Maybe he falls. Maybe he's one of these guys that falls all the way down to pick 19 of Tampa. I like this team a little bit better than I would say the Raiders. And I list the Raiders picking Will Levis. But my most likely landing spot for him, and I do have a trade-up scenario, is a Tennessee Titans. Jumping the Indianapolis Colts, somehow solidifying, I would say the Colts, Lions, Vegas, and Atlanta to go out and to go up and get their quarterback. They have to take a shot, right? They have to go up and get him. So Tennessee trades up to pick 3 to acquire Will Levis. And as we're recording this video today, Will Levis is visiting with the Tennessee Titans. So I thought that was really interesting as well. So they're doing their due diligence there, making sure if they want to invest in a Will Levis, and they need to. You know, they traded for Ryan Tannehill. They picked him up and said, you know what, how far can you take us? Only been to the playoffs a couple times here with Derrick Henry. And now this team is struggling. Tannehill missed some time last year. Malik Willis, they took a flyer on him in the 3rd round with the 88th pick. And it clearly didn't work out. We didn't see much improvement because he lost his job to Josh Dobbs, who was working at Chili's at the time. I mean, welcome to Chili's. If that doesn't speak volumes, then I don't know what does. So it's clear that they're not investing in Malik Willis, and it's clear that they're really trying to look for their guy. And Will Levis could be this guy. Can Ryan Tannehill really bring him up? Even though earlier when Malik came, he was like, that ain't my job. I ain't remember that. He's like, that's not my job. I'm not here to babysit or teach anyone. I'm here to do my job, right? So it's going to be a little bit friendly competition. I can definitely see Will Levis potentially getting a starting job maybe in the second half of the season, or he sits out all of 2023, and then Ryan Tannehill is at the last year of his contract, and then Will Levis once again comes in, plays for this team. Not only do they have Treylon Burks, but maybe they draft a wide receiver in 2024. Maybe they get another running back in 2024. Or maybe once we know this landing spot and how this draft goes, do they have another running back here? Do they have a Spears? Do they have a Roscoe on their team? Do they have a Zach Evans when Derrick Henry is gone? So that will be really exciting to see Will Levis grow with Treylon Burks, one of these younger running backs. And I would say a decent offensive line as well. So keep that in mind. So I like Will Levis. Once again, Tennessee Titans trading up to pick 3, jumping all those teams to getting their quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely could make sense. The Titans have been talking about moving up. Who is it for? I'm not saying it's a bad pick by them, but I just had a flashback of like Jake Locker, because similar player, similar upside, similar risk, and I just wonder what Titan fans would think about that, because it definitely could happen.
There's definitely, if a team trades up to take Will Levis over Anthony Richardson, every fan of that team is going to be so upset.
They're going to be upset, yeah.
Just saying, you could have just let him fall and he would have came to you, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
And, a lot of people thought that Kenny Pickett was a lock to go to the Panthers at 6th overall last year, and he fell. So you got to keep that in mind. The draft will not go the way all the NFL mock drafts are saying it will go, right? That's just realistic.
Agreed.
All right, let's talk about Anthony Richardson. Where is Anthony Richardson going to land? I could make this a very boring take. I could say he's going to the Colts at pick 4. Okay?
Makes sense.
What do you do? He definitely could. I can make this boring. I'd say he's going to the Raiders, pick 7.
Makes sense.
Okay? All those things are very realistically like possibilities. That's too chalky for me. I want to have a little bit of fun with this, okay? I just have a feeling that something is still in the waters. Something has yet to happen, and let's have fun with this one. Anthony Richardson he has top 30 visits so far with the Ravens.
Right.
That's a little weird. I think that was, in case this deal goes down, with the Panthers, the Colts, the Raiders, the Titans, and the team that I think could be looking at moving up when all is said and done, the Atlanta Falcons. He has a top 30 visit with them. I am projecting, just for fun really, but I think it could really happen for sure, the Falcons trading up to pick 3 with the Cardinals. And you think about it in this way, the Cardinals don't have to move back to 11, right? They have to move back. I believe it's at 8.
Yeah, it's 8.
Is it 8 that the Falcons have?
Yeah.
So you kind of stay in that range of a player that you potentially want. Maybe it's a cornerback. Some of those elite cornerbacks might be off the board at that time. But Anthony Richardson goes to the Atlanta Falcons. They spent a 3rd-round pick last year on Desmond Ridder, who was like, okay. He's just like, he's okay. Like, maybe he develops a lot in his second year, but he can play this year while Richardson learns behind him. If you have something with Ridder, great. You have more, trade opportunities out there in the market. But why did the Falcons, like, I think we can all say maybe Lamar's probably going back to Baltimore now, but when that whole fiasco was out there, why were the Falcons so obviously out on Lamar Jackson? Did they believe in Desmond Ridder that much, or do they have plans in this draft already and they don't want to spoil it? Could it be because they already have their sights set up on a quarterback one in this draft that they maybe want to trade up with? But think about this. You have a future. If I'm a Falcons fan, I feel ecstatic about this future. Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Anthony Richardson. Maybe we draft a different running back, or we're building around Tyler Algier. But for Dynasty, for me, this is the second best possible landing spot for Anthony Richardson. The best landing spot would be the Lions, which they could very well also be a spot that could make sense. But this team's identity is already a perfect fit for Anthony Richardson. I mean, this team, only the Eagles ran the ball more last year than the Falcons. And we could legitimately see the Falcons, when Anthony Richardson is under center, run the ball 40 times a game. Like, that's legitimately a realistic outcome. They could be running the ball 40 times a game with Anthony Richardson there. So for fantasy purposes, I love it. It's probably the least realistic spot of everything that we're going to say today. But I didn't want to go too chalky and just say he's going to the Colts, because that's probably what's going to happen.
No, it definitely makes sense. You kind of want to switch it up, and that's exactly what's happening. Because I thought about the Colts for Will Levis, right? I mean, it's pretty obvious where some of these guys can go, but a team has to jump. We just don't know which team is going to be. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the running back room for me, I got Jahmyr Gibbs here. A couple realistic landing spots, and the more I think about it, the more closer we get to the NFL draft, I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be a day 2 pick. I can definitely see him going in the first, but I feel really, really like I don't think some of these teams at the end of the board are going to want to get a Jahmyr Gibbs or want to spend a first-round draft pick on Jahmyr Gibbs. They go more defensive, offensive line, whatever the case may be. So some realistic landing spots for me is the Atlanta Falcons, round 2, pick 44. That can go with Anthony Richardson and Zach's trade. I mean, that could be a really, really deadly team there if Jahmyr Gibbs does go there. Also have Miami, pick 51, round 2. Feels really comfortable for this team. Zach and I always say this is probably one of the best landing spots for a running back is to go to the Miami Dolphins. But my most likely landing spot for this team, who has the 3rd overall pick in the 2nd round, pick 34, that's the Arizona Cardinals. Not only do they get draft capital, and I guess let's roll with the scenarios that we have. They traded back from the 3rd. In my scenario or in Zach's scenario, get some draft capital. You still have your 2nd, and maybe you get an extra 2nd somehow in the 2nd as well, right? You get Jahmyr Gibbs, you get a defensive player, and you can probably get another wide receiver in the 2nd, hypothetically, in this scenario. So he goes to the Arizona Cardinals, round 2, pick 34, and they need a running back, right? James Conner is 27 years old, soon to be 28 in July. And I know Kyler Murray, they need to build around him, right? He has no one around him at this very moment. Yes, you have DeAndre Hopkins, apparently going to be moved around. They have Hollywood Brown, who they still need to re-sign. They have Rondale Moore there as well. He needs a running back. He needs someone that can be up there, can protect him, that can be a pass-catching guy for him, a guy that can run in between the tackles. I think he needs a do-it-all guy. I think Jahmyr could be a do-it-all guy, but I think he's more of a pass-catching guy, a guy that can swing out, could be a safety net, a Texas route, whatever the case may be for Kyler Murray, because we saw with his ACL that he tore, maybe he's a little bit more hesitant, coming into this year. Maybe he doesn't trust that knee as much as when he comes back into the league, right? Comes back into playing football. So getting Jahmyr Gibbs, being this guy that he can lean on a little bit more, will be fantastic. Either they re-sign Hollywood Brown, they get a Josh Downs with that early 2nd, with that extra 2nd if they do that trade, right? Hypothetically, this could be a really, really good opportunity for Jahmyr Gibbs. And once again, for the Dynasty perspective, I think this is easy. This is a guy that's going to be a goal line guy. hopefully a Texas route, a pass catching guy. I would definitely say a pass catching guy, especially in this new offense with a new head coach, a new offensive coordinator. All these guys are going to be switching up. The Cardinals are going to look a little bit different here. So expect Jahmyr Gibbs to be getting a lot of work in the air and some goal line opportunity if he does go to the Arizona Cardinals.
And I would say that he looks on track with his recovery. I mean, videos were released last week or whatever it was of him squatting like 300 pounds or something, like,
which is wild.
He is ahead of recovery from what it looks, and I would be surprised if he does play this year. A lot of people are saying he's not going to play the entire year. Maybe, but maybe he does play. It depends on how that recovery is going. Okay, let's talk about Zach Charbonnet. A couple spots that could make sense. Dolphins at round 2, pick 51. What I wrote down is I feel like Jahmyr Gibbs fits their system better. And I think he's the better, like, their speed all over the field. And they're trying to get speed into that backfield. I think Gibbs is like the perfect fit for the Dolphins. So if they have the option between both, I think they go Gibbs. The Falcons could make sense. In the second round, only the Eagles ran the ball more last year. But my most likely landing spot, I'm trying to read the writing on the wall at this point for Joe Mixon and the Bengals.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Bengals at round 2, pick 60. Okay. I don't think that Charbonnet is going to be like early second territory like the Javonte Williams of the past. I think he's going to be mid to late second. And what in the world is going on with Joe Mixon? I mean, it feels like every couple weeks there's a new report.
Yeah, man.
Ian Rappaport reported recently that the Cincinnati Police Department has refiled an aggravated menacing charge against him after they discovered some sort of new evidence. What is that new evidence? We don't know. What would that mean for his play time? What would that mean for his contract? What would that mean for his status with this team? Again, we don't know. Regardless, this team did lose Samaje Perine to free agency. He went to Denver. And Samaje Perine had 95 carries for this team. He was also more efficient than Joe Mixon, who averaged a measly 3.9 yards per attempt. It makes sense for this team to plan for the future at the position, if not the immediate future. Like if T. Higgins is going to sign a new deal, if Joe Burrow is going to sign a new deal, maybe Joe Mixon is going to be cut from this team. For Dynasty, though, it is like, let's play two scenarios here. Zach Charbonnet is drafted and Joe Mixon is still on the team. Worst case scenario, because Joe Mixon isn't just going to go away if that's the case, right? If it's week 1, both of those backs are on the roster, not very good. We could be entering Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams type territory where we all love Javonte Williams, but Melvin Gordon isn't just going away. Right? He's not just going away because Charbonnet is extremely talented. We've learned from our mistakes there. So that would be frustrating. But I would say at minimum year 2, it would be shocking if the team didn't move on from Joe Mixon and then Charbonnet steps in as a full-time starter. Let's play scenario 2. Joe Mixon is cut. They've done all these, Joe Burrow signed long-term. T. Higgins is signed long-term. Charbonnet would absolutely skyrocket. Like, I would not be surprised if we start seeing Charbonnet over Gibbs. I would not be surprised if we start seeing Charbonnet over Quentin Johnston, over Jordan Addison. Like, those kind of things would not surprise me in the slightest. So it's a landing spot that the more you put pieces together, the more it could make sense. And maybe Charbonnet is the answer for them.
Yeah, I definitely like this landing spot. And if Charby does go there, it's going to be deadly. It's going to be deadly. And I would agree. He can definitely go over Quentin. I can definitely see that for some people. I can definitely see it, the Addisons, whatever the case may be. This is going to be a prime landing spot if Joe is no longer on this team. All right, my last player here is a tight end. So it may not be as exciting, but let's talk it up. Let's not sleep on the tight ends here, okay? Michael Mayer could potentially going in the first round here.
Okay.
A couple landing spots I do have is your Washington Commanders, soon to be owned by some billionaire that no one knows, potentially.
Or everyone knows.
Who knows? I mean,
who knows?
Yeah, it could be Jeff. Imagine Jeff Bezos, and then you just got like Amazon all over. Every Washington fan can get Jeff. Amazon like Prime for free. I don't know. Anyways.
Yeah, well, the new stadium is probably going to be called like Amazon Stadium or something like that, or Prime Stadium. Yeah, I could see.
Oh my gosh, and they're called like the wolf, like an animal name, the Hogs in Amazon Stadium. Holy shit.
Yeah,
that's you. Anyways. Michael Mayer, so he can go to the Washington Commanders and pick 16, round 1, or the Dallas Cowboys at the end of the first will pick 21 in the first round. But my most likely landing spot, I would personally say, is the Detroit Lions. I like this pick.
Okay.
It makes sense here. And I don't see him falling into the 20s. I would be really surprised. Not that I wouldn't be surprised, but I see him going in the middle of the rounds. You know, some of these wide receivers, some of these teams don't like. And maybe a team in the middle pack here, you know, the Jets, New England, Green Bay, Washington, Detroit, Tampa. All those guys need tight ends, right? They also need, some teams need wide receivers. Some of them don't. So I think if they don't like the wide receiver room and Jackson Smith is off the board and Quentin's off the board, Michael Mayer could be this guy. This is a Dan Campbell guy, okay? A big body guy, big tight end that could block and be a threat in the middle of the field for DC and the Lions. And let me remind you the history as well. The Lions did draft a top tight end in TJ Hawkinson in 2019 with the 8th overall pick. So, and that was a perfect match. So the history is there for this organization to go out and get a tight end that they like and love, and that can help. So they traded him away to the Vikings. His offense personally would be elite with him, right? Monty, Swift, Michael Mayer, J-Mo, Amon-Ra, Jared Goff playing, you know, lights out. So he can be another threat for this team, another weapon for this team, and can take this team to the next level. And I think this will be a powerhouse team. We can easily see them in the playoffs, I would say, with Michael Mayer, you know, coming into 2023. Maybe that's high praise for Michael Mayer, but I think it would be fantastic. But another thing is, what's a dynasty outlet look like? You know, getting Michael Mayer in the first round might be a bit difficult if he does go to. When I say it might be a bit difficult, I would say his projections based off of all the weapons around him. Like, it's not just Michael Mayer going to be the guy on this offense. It's Amon-Ra, it's J-Mo, it's Monty, it's Swift. Where does his workload come in? It'll be hard to project that right now, but I do believe there could be an opportunity for him. What does that look like? Maybe it's 80 targets on the year, you know, 70 targets in his first year, and then him growing into a bigger role, 100, 110, whatever the case may be leading up to the season. So I like Michael Mayer going to the Detroit Lions.
I think that could make a ton of sense for sure. By the way, Dan Campbell was a former NFL tight end.
Yeah.
So
that's why
keep that in mind.
DC's guy.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about Zay Flowers to end the video here. You guys know I like Zay a little bit more than the average person, so I'm going to hype him up a little bit here. But realistic spots, the Saints at that pick 29 in the first round, I think that could make sense. I could see the Patriots trading down and going Zay Flowers because they are notorious trade down candidates.
Right.
Right now, top 30 visits for Zay Flowers. He's visiting. Actually, I did top 30 Combine and Senior Bowl visits. The following teams: Giants, Patriots, Raiders, which is weird. Raiders have been visiting. Maybe they're early second. You could see him go there.
Maybe.
Ravens, Saints, Cowboys. But my most likely landing spot, and I've just fallen in love with this spot, and it makes sense because I feel like this is comfortable with draft capital as far as like how high he will go. Maybe he will go higher like Jahan Dotson did last year, but the Los Angeles Chargers at round 1, pick 21. Keenan Allen is going to be 31 soon. Okay. Mike Williams is going to be 29 soon. And those players have very specific roles, right? Keenan Allen is not going to take a slant over the middle of the field and house it for 80 yards because of his speed. Like, that's just not going to happen. That's not the type of player that he is, right? He's a reliable over the field type player. Mike Williams, again, is not that same player. He can't do what Keenan Allen does. He's your deep threat. He's your jump ball type player. And neither of those guys seem to be able to stay healthy for a full season anymore. Justin Herbert needs a young weapon to grow with. And not only that, you need to sign Justin Herbert long term. So you might need to ask some questions about the contracts that you've given Keenan and Michael Williams. So not only would Zay Flowers give him a weapon to grow with, but he would also give him a wide receiver that instantly has a solidified role between these two vets. Like, it makes sense. You're building a basketball team. Zay Flowers can kind of be your shooting guard, right? Feels like Keenan's more the point guard. He's your reliable person. Mike Williams maybe is your power forward or whatever.
Yeah.
It feels like Zay Flowers can be this dynamic player for your offense. He is a big play waiting to happen. And Justin Herbert needs a player like that. You know, Austin Eckler's got some speed, but think about it. Where's the speed in this room with these weapons? Why don't we have a ton of plays that are just broken plays because there's not a player like that on this team, you know? Zay Flowers can be that player. He's currently my wide receiver 3, kind of tied with Jordan Addison right now. And some people might say that's crazy. I don't think it's crazy. I think Zay Flowers is that good. But this could make an argument for him to be wide receiver 2 in this class for me. He could jump Quentin Johnston. If the landing spot is perfect, like the Los Angeles Chargers, like I'm asking myself, is this a top 24 dynasty wide receiver from day one in my rankings? Like that's a realistic possibility.
Right.
Am I like if Zay Flowers is the first round pick for the Chargers, do I want DJ Moore or Zay Flowers? Do I want Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Jerry Jeudy, George Pickens, or Zay Flowers? Like those are the conversations I'm starting to have with myself. And I understand not everyone is all in on Zay Flowers, kind of like I have been over the past couple months. I've kind of grown to love him a little bit more. But I think if he went to the Chargers, a lot of people would start to join that narrative, whether it's right or whether it's wrong.
Yeah.
But he wouldn't jump drastically. I just think he would jump like a couple spots for me. If let's say Quentin, worst case scenario, yeah, I'm taking him over Quentin. If Quentin goes to like the Lions, for example, which we've seen before, yeah, I'll go Zay Flowers over Quentin in that scenario. So Zay Flowers, I mean, I honestly think to me, I'm not going to say he's the most attractive receiver to these NFL teams, but I would say he's probably up there. Like him and Jaxon, I think these are the wide receivers that people want on their team. They want to kind of build around them from what it sounds like. So
I would definitely agree there.
Don't be surprised if Zay Flowers ends up being the first or second wide receiver drafted in this year's class. Like that should not surprise anyone if it happens. I'm not saying it will, but it's definitely a possibility. So those are some landing spots that we have. I guarantee that some of them you hate and some of them you love. And just let us know in the comments down below which way you lean for each of these prospects. Drop a like to show some support. Subscribe if you like Dynasty content. And we'll see you guys here very, very soon. All love. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy. Even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.